गुपचुप मीटिंग स्वयं राहुल गांधी करते। ये तो पीढ़ियों से चीन प्रेम चला रहा है। हिंदी चीनी भाई भाई से शुरू हुआ, सोनिया गांधी के राजीव गांधी फाउंडेशन से गुजरता हुआ चीन के राजदूत की मीटिंग तक आया। मान्यवर, और ये हमें कह रहे हैं कि आपने चीन का नाम नहीं दिया। अरे भाई, जब देना है तब देंगे। और हमारे विदेश मंत्री ने बहुत मजबूती के साथ इसका जवाब दिया। हर चीज प्रधानमंत्री को बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है, मगर आप देश की जनता को बताओ जरा, क्या एमओयू हुआ था, कितना पैसा लिया गया, चीन के राजदूत के साथ युद्ध की स्थिति में कैसे बात कर सकते हो? और आप प्रतिपक्ष के नेता हो, 38,000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर भूमि चली गई, और साहब इरिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी देखे, कहते हैं वहां घास का तिनका भी नहीं उगता। अब नेहरू जी का सर मेरे जैसा था साहब, तो हमारे महावीर त्यागी थे, उन्होंने कहा कि साहब आपके सर पर भी एक बाल नहीं है, क्या इसको चीन बेच दे? क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है? कितने इरिस्पॉन्सिबल जवाब हो। और अभी संधि की बात करें मान्यवर, मैं 71 के युद्ध में हमारा विजय हुआ। इंदिरा जी प्रधानमंत्री थी, बहुत अच्छा काम हुआ, विजय हुआ। 93,000 पाकिस्तान के सैनिक युद्धबंदी थे। 93,000 पाकिस्तानी सैनिकों को शिमला समझौते में लौटा दिया। पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर नहीं मांगा। अगर उस वक्त इंदिरा गांधी, इस देश की दिवंगत प्रधानमंत्री जी, पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर लिखवा लेती तो आज आतंकवाद देश में आ ही नहीं सकता था। मान्यवर, पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर भी आ जाता। मान्यवर, इसके साथ साथ हमारा 15,000 वर्ग किलोमीटर क्षेत्र हमारे कब्जे में था पाकिस्तान, वो भी दे दिया। पाकिस्तान के 93,000 युद्धबंदियों को दे दिया। हमारे सिर्फ 54 पकड़े गए थे, वो वापिस नहीं आए। आज भी इनके परिवारजन उनकी राह देख रहे हैं। मान्यवर, क्या संवेदनशीलता है, क्या समझौता किया आपने। और साहब, जनरल मानेक साहब, जिनको 71 युद्ध का आर्किटेक्ट कहा जाता है, उन्होंने एक इंटरव्यू में कहा था, जनरल मानेक साहब के इंटरव्यू में कहते हैं, शिमला में भुट्टो ने भारत के नेतृत्व को मूर्ख बनाया। वो इंटरव्यू अंग्रेजी में, इसलिए मैं कोट अनकोट पढ़ाता हूं। I told her, into bracket उन्होंने छापा है इंदिरा गांधी, that I told her that he, into bracket Bhutto, I told her that he has made monkey out of you। और ये हमें पूछ रहे संधि क्या? हमने तो युद्ध ही घोषित नहीं करा था, संधि किस चीज की भी? हमारा एक लिमिटेड एग्रेशन था, टेररिज्म पर हमारा हमला था, और हमारे आत्मरक्षा के अधिकार का उपयोग करते हुए, और ये हमें पूछ रहे हैं। चिंता मत करो राहुल गांधी, पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर की चिंता है ना, भारतीय जनता पार्टी ही ला देगी पाक ऑक्यूपाई। आप नहीं ला पाए, कांग्रेस पार्टी नहीं ला पाई, हमें लाए। और मान्यवर, पाक ऑक्यूपाई कश्मीर छोड़िए, पाकिस्तान की रचना ही कांग्रेस पार्टी ने की थी। मैं कम से कम इतना तो जिम्मेदारी के साथ कह सकता, मैं उस वक्त निर्णायक स्थिति में होता तो भारत माता के टुकड़े कभी सिग्नेचर नहीं करता। उम्र हो गई थी, जल्दी थी, प्रधानमंत्री बनना था, देश के टुकड़े टुकड़े करते। आज तक देश पछता रहा है। मान्यवर, आतंकवाद के मुद्दों पर अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंचों में हमारी देश की फजीहत करते। मुंबई अटैक के बाद शर्म अल शेख सम्मेलन हुआ, जिसको पूरी दुनिया की डिप्लोमेसी में बलूचिस्तान ब्लंडर के नाम से जानते हैं। उसमें प्रस्ताव किया कि दोनों देश आतंकवाद के शिकार हैं। अब भला दुनिया में कोई पाकिस्तान को आतंकवाद का शिकार कह सकता है क्या? लोग हमारे मरे हैं, जवान हमारे मरे हैं, और आपने उनको पाकिस्तान को सर्टिफिकेट दे दिया। मान्यवर, और भारत पाकिस्तान के आधिकारिक बयान में भी बलूचिस्तान का जिक्र किया। इनका आंतरिक मामला था। हमारा कोई लेन देन नहीं है, बलूचिस्तान में जो घटनाएं हो रही, मनमोहन सिंह स्वीकार कर आए और उसके बाद में उन्होंने कहा कि टेरर की घटना और वार्ता उसके बीच में कोई रिलेशनशिप नहीं। भगवान भला करे, देश की जनता का नरेंद्र मोदी को प्रधानमंत्री बनाया, वो चीज को नरेंद्र मोदी ने समाप्त कर दी। जब तक टेररिज्म नहीं रुकता है वार्ता नहीं हो सकती। मान्यवर, आज ये लोग जो बोल रहे हैं, विदेश नीति पर सवाल उठा रहे हैं, मैं उनको कहना चाहता हूं कि मोदी जी को G20 कई सारे देशों को मिला है। राजीव गांधी फाउंडेशन में एक स्टडी करा दो, हर देश में हुआ G20 और भारत में हुआ G20। हर देश की राजधानी में जाता है। मोदी जी G20 को हर राज्य में ले गए। मानिए, हमारी संस्कृति, हमारी क्षमताएं, हमारा पावर, हमारा लोकतंत्र पूरी दुनिया के सामने रखने का काम नरेंद्र मोदी ने किया और पूरी दुनिया स्वीकार कर रही है कि पूरे अब तक के G20 सम्मेलन में सबसे सफल G20 सम्मेलन है। और मान्यवर, इसीलिए पूरी दुनिया में कई सारे राष्ट्राध्यक्ष है। मान्यवर, किसी भी देश के राष्ट्राध्यक्ष को 27 देशों का सर्वोच्च नागरिक सम्मान, और ये विदेश नीति की बात है, 27 देश अपने सर्वोच्च नागरिक सम्मान से नरेंद्र मोदी को सम्मानित करते हैं। भाई साहब, ये सम्मान नरेंद्र मोदी जी का नहीं है, भारत के प्रधानमंत्री का है, भारत की 140 मोदी जी ने देश को सम्मान दिला है, देश की 140 करोड़ जनता को गौरवान्वित किया है। तो मोदी जी का नेतृत्व जो है, मान्यवर, भावुक नहीं है। भावुक नेतृत्व होता है, वो रोने भी लगता है, कई बार शकम भी हो जाता है। मोदी जी का नेतृत्व संवेदनशील भी है, निर्णायक भी है और दृढ़ भी है। मैंने देखा है कोरोना 370 ऑपरेशन सिंदूर, ये सारा छोड़ दो। कोरोना में मैंने देखा है इससे बड़ी आफत इस सहस्त्राब्दी में भारत पर नहीं आई थी। अड़ीग होकर अपने रास्ते पर चलते रहे और जब कोरोना समाप्त हुआ, पूरी दुनिया ने कहा सबसे अच्छा प्रबंधन भारत ने किया। और उसका कारण जब ढूंढा गया, मैं भी स्टडी करने वाले कुछ लोगों को मिला था मान्यवर, जब कारण पूछा गया, स्टडी किया गया, तो सबने कहा कि पूरे विश्व में कोरोना के सामने सरकारें लड़ती थी, हमारे यहाँ प्रधानमंत्री, भारत सरकार, राज्य सरकार और 140 करोड़ लोग एक साथ कोरोना के सामने लड़ते थे। मजाक उड़ाते, घंटी बजाने से कोरोना चला जाएगा, दिया जलाने से चला जाएगा, कर्फ्यू करने से अपने आप चला जाएगा। उनको मालूम नहीं था, जनता के मन में जागरूकता लाते थे। और जब, मुझे तो ठीक याद है, मोदी जी ने टीम गठित की टीका बनाने के लिए, तब जयराम रमेश जी, नाम मत लीजिए, रिकॉर्ड पर मत लीजिएगा, तब कांग्रेस वाले इनका मजाक करते थे कि भारत टीका बना लेगा। मान्यवर, सबसे पहले टीका बनाने वाले देशों में भारत है और इसी के कारण हम बचे थे। मान्यवर, 11 साल में समग्र दुनिया ने भारत की क्षमता को स्वीकारा है। भारत 11वें नंबर से चौथी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बना। जीडीपी हमारा 4.19 ट्रिलियन हो गया, $1 ट्रिलियन की डिजिटल अर्थव्यवस्था बनी। प्रति व्यक्ति आय, जयराम रमेश जी हमेशा पूछा करते हैं, निर्मला जी बताती भी नहीं है, 68,572 से बढ़कर 1,33,488। मान्यवर, राष्ट्रीय राजमार्ग का नेटवर्क 60% बढ़ा, 159 ऑपरेशनल एयरपोर्ट है, 31 लेकर मोदी जी ने इनिंग शुरू करा था, अभी समाप्त नहीं हुआ। 136 वंदे भारत ट्रेन है, 1500 ट्रेन अमृत स्टेशन योजना के तहत विकसित हो रहे हैं। 97% से अधिक भारतीय रेल का विद्युतीकरण हो चुका है। भारत दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा मोबाइल फोन उत्पादक देश बनने के कगार पर है। भारत तीसरा सबसे बड़ा स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम बन चुका है। मोदी सरकार में 118 यूनिकॉर्न बने। रक्षा क्षेत्र में हमारा उत्पादन 1.27 लाख करोड़ हुआ और निर्यात 21,000 करोड़ हुआ। विश्व का सबसे बड़ा पुल भारत में है। विश्व का सबसे लंबा पुल भारत में है। देश का सबसे लंबी अटल सेतु भारत में बनी। भारत का पहला वर्टिकल लिफ्ट रेल पुल मोदी जी के समय में हुआ और सबसे बड़ा एनएच भी मोदी जी के समय में बना। और सबसे बड़ी उपलब्धि कई पीढ़ियों से गरीबी जिनको डस रही थी मान्यवर, 60 करोड़ लोगों को घर में बिजली, गैस, शौचालय, शुद्ध पीने का पानी, 5 किलो अनाज और 5 लाख तक का इलाज देने का काम। ये नहीं समझ रहे। आपकी जो इच्छा हो मैं मान्यवर एनालिसिस के साथ इस सदन में जिम्मेदारी के पूर्वक कहना चाहता हूं, जब भी भारत की आजादी का इतिहास 25 साल के बाद शताब्दी के वर्ष लिखा जाएगा, ये मोदी एरा स्वर्ण अक्षरों से लिखा जाएगा। किसी ने और मान्यवर कई सारे चीजें जो भारत के स्वाभिमान से साथ जुड़ी थी, हमारे इतिहास के साथ, हमारी संस्कृति के सम्मान के साथ, वो सारी चीजों को इन्होंने 75 साल तक लटका कर रखा। मैं आज एक लिस्ट पढ़ना चाहता हूं। अचीवमेंट जो हुए, आर्थिक विकास हुआ है, प्रजा का आत्मगौरव उड़ा है माननीय। आर्टिकल 370 को हमने हटा दिया, 3 तलाक समाप्त कर दिया, यूसीसी शुरू हो चुका है, राम मंदिर का निर्माण अयोध्या में रंग चंग के साथ हो गया। न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में मातृभाषा में शिक्षा पर हमने बल दिया। काशी, उज्जैन, शारदा पीठ, करतारपुर कॉरिडोर बनाए, राजपथ का नाम बदलकर कर्तव्य पथ रख दिया, योग को वैश्विक पहचान दिलाई, नया सैनिक चिन्ह वीर छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज के निशाने पर रखा, संसद के अंदर सेंगोल की स्थापना की, राष्ट्रीय युद्ध स्मारक का स्वदेशी निर्माण किया, अंडमान और निकोबार द्वीप समूह के नाम बदलकर सुभाष बाबू और परमवीर चक्र विजेता बने हुए हमारे सेनानियों पे साथ रखे। और इसके साथ साथ कई सारी उपलब्धियां ये एरा में हुई। मान्यवर सबसे बड़ी उपलब्धि है 2047 में मुझे एक विदेशी पत्रकार ने कहा, मैं लंबा बैठा था, मैं उनकी थॉट प्रोसेस को जानना चाहता। अब मैं जो सुनना चाहता था तीसरे ही वाक्य में आ गया कि अब भारत को कोई रोक नहीं सकता। तो मैं उनको पूछा क्यों? उन्होंने कहा अब तक भारत ने अपना लक्ष्य ही तय नहीं किया था, कैसे अचीव करता। मैंने बोला अब क्या हुआ? कि अब मोदी जी ने तय कर दिया कि जब 100 साल का भारत होगा, आजादी के 100 साल होंगे, तब विश्व में हर एक क्षेत्र में हम नंबर 1 पर होंगे और महान भारत। और मान्यवर मुझे मालूम है मोदी जी का भाषण, मोदी जी का संदेश आज 140 करोड़ भारतीयों का संकल्प बना हुआ है और मुझे विश्वास है 140 करोड़ भारतीयों पर और हमारे युवाओं पर। शायद हम में से काफी लोग 2047 में नहीं होंगे, परंतु 2047 में जो भी भारतीय होंगे वो देखेंगे कि विश्व में भारत नंबर 1 बन चुका है। मान्यवर भारत को नंबर 1 बनना है तो हमारी बाहरी सुरक्षा और आंतरिक सुरक्षा बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर की चर्चा में मैं देश की जनता को कहना चाहता हूं, युद्ध होता है तो हमला वहां पर से भी होता है, यहाँ से पर से एक भी हमला ऐसा नहीं जाएगा जिसका जवाब दिया नहीं जाएगा और आतंकवाद को हम समाप्त कर रहेंगे। 31/3/26 को नक्सलवाद समाप्त हो जाएगा, इसमें किसी को शंका नहीं। और अंत में जिन सदस्यों ने इसमें हिस्सा लिया है बहुत सम्मान के साथ उनका धन्यवाद कर और फिर से एक बार ऑपरेशन महादेव में जिन्होंने हिस्सा लिया है वो सभी को पूरे सदन की ओर से और व्यक्तिगत मेरे रूप से बहुत बहुत साधुवाद देता हूं।
The House stands adjourned to meet at 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 31st July 2025.
Donald Trump's trade tsunami has finally hit. India had been expecting this for a while, but when the bomb drops, it's always harsh. This time, it's a 25% tariff bomb on India, wrapped in Trump's traditional cocktail of grievance, exaggeration, and performative fury. He says India has too many tariffs, too many trade barriers, too much business with Russia, and this all needs to be punished. Well, starting August the 1st, he declares India will pay, and there will be penalties if India doesn't behave. But here's the thing. India was actually fully prepared for this. There's rarely anything subtle about how Trump does diplomacy. This is not a surprise. In fact, India likely saw this coming a mile away because this is exactly how Trump sets the stage for a negotiation. He throws a grenade in the room and then waits for everyone to come out coughing so he can then offer them a deal. He did this with Japan, he did it with the EU, he even tried it with China, and clearly it hasn't really worked with India. This is classic Trump playbook. Threat first and then transaction. I would actually go ahead and say this particular threat from Trump is proof that India has stood its ground. But here's what's different this time. India has proven not to be a pushover and certainly not going to get flustered because Trump thinks mentioning Russia, oil and weapons is some kind of masterstroke. India knows exactly what this is. A little performative menace to build up leverage, and India isn't biting. In fact, it's doing the diplomatic equivalent of standing its ground and maybe even smirking a little, because this is the same Trump who not too long ago was busy getting one of his top generals to praise Pakistan as an incredible counter-terror partner. This is the same Trump who wined and dined Pakistan's army chief weeks after Indian tourists were killed in Pahalgam by Pakistani terrorists. The same Trump who lied about mediating an India-Pakistan ceasefire and tried stealing credit for India's military operations. So let's just say American hypocrisy on Pakistan doesn't really sting anymore. We've seen it all before, and India knows better than to read these moves at face value. After all, there is a negotiation going on. India is transactional when it comes to self-interest as well. This isn't even an emotional issue, and many people are tempted to be angry or stung by Trump's words. This is Trump's diplomacy. It is a Broadway show in many ways, full of muscle flexing, bluffing, and threat theater. These are the lubricants of the Trump machine. This doesn't mean that India isn't taking this seriously, not for a moment. It is. And it doesn't mean that this is good news. It isn't. This is the US president, and a 25% tariff is no joke. But India, all I'm saying, is not rattled. It's not unprepared. It will play hardball, possibly right back, to the extent that it's in our interest. This isn't the collapse of trade ties or relations, as some may be tempted to say, even though it definitely will affect the larger fabric, perhaps, of India-US relations. It's just the latest chapter, however, in navigating the wild west of Trump world. And India, let's just say, has read this script before. So there's no panic. It's just time to prep work for what comes next. And finally, I wanted to say, Trump's tariff bomb is also a huge self-goal, isn't it? Because implicit in Trump's imposition of 25% tariffs on India is the confirmation that the US president has been dishonest in his claim that India agreed to a ceasefire with Pakistan when he threatened there would be no trade deal. He has claimed about 29 times so far that India accepted his deal for ceasefire offer, right? Since there is no deal and instead this tariff bomb, are we to infer that Trump has been lying all along and has just admitted to doing so? Joining me live now for the serious questions on what this Trump tariff bomb really means tonight, I'm Very happy and privileged to be joined by Ambassador Javed Ashraf, former Ambassador of India to France and Monaco, one of India's best-known veteran diplomats. Ambassador Ashraf, welcome. Sorry to keep you waiting. There was a live coverage going on of Parliament. Harsh Gupta Madhusudan is a fund manager and author. Willem Buiter is an American-British economist and independent economic advisor as well. We also have Kushal Mehra, who's an author and podcaster with many strong views on this topic. Ambassador Ashraf, I'm going to kick it off with you. Your first reactions to what's going on. To the Indian public, a trade deal was being negotiated. There was expectations that there could be some hardball from Trump. This one was particularly harsh. What do you think, sir?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I think it was not very surprising because the signals were already coming. And despite some very strong, intense, frequent efforts by the Indian negotiators for a trade deal, I would say of a level of engagement and investment that is unprecedented in such a short period of time. And naturally, given that it is our largest export market, but we didn't reach any kind of a deal, and we were getting signals. But I'd like to point out two things on this show. One is that when he made this announcement, you could see that it isn't just about trade. He's brought in geopolitical consideration.
Yeah.
Ironically, about Russia, on which his ambivalence has been extremely well known. Second, you've pointed out right now that he said that he brought about a ceasefire between India and Pakistan by using the leverage of trade. Clearly, that is very obvious now that that wasn't the case, and that only bears out what the Prime Minister and government of India have been repeatedly stating, that there was no truth to his claim. And certainly there was no question of any discussions on trade at that point of time. The third thing I wanted to point out, that President Trump hasn't really been engaging in any trade negotiations. It's been a deal in the sense of take it or leave it. It's been asymmetric. Remember, even with his closest allies, Japan, Korea, and now European Union, it's really very one-sided. You will have to pay tariff. I don't have to pay tariff. Second, you have to buy a certain quantity of energy, defense equipment, and you have to invest several $100 billions in the US economy. This is of doubtful enforceability in the first place. The legality of what he calls a deal is absolutely questionable. So I think at the end of the day, what we have done is actually negotiate in good faith, but at the same time stand very clearly with regard to the red lines of India's interest. And having dealt with the United States for over a decade, I can tell you that some of those outstanding and sticky issues have been around for more than a decade, particularly with regard to agriculture, dairy, genetically modified crops. It was almost a deal breaker during President Obama's visit and subsequently during other summits from 2010 onwards. But we are very clear, and I think the fact that we have not succumbed as some of the major partners have, European Union, for example, which has left many countries in Europe deeply unhappy with that one-sided deal.
Yes.
We have said we're ready to negotiate, but we will not succumb or surrender in the sense of sacrificing the vital interests of our farmers, of our small-scale industries, or some of the most sensitive and vulnerable sectors of our economy. And also in addition to that, I mean, you cannot force and compel a country to say that you have to buy a certain quantity of energy, you have to buy a certain quantity of defense equipment, and you're forced to invest. I mean, government of India can't tell private sector to invest in the United States in certain measures. So I think that, overall, it is, again, something which you have to juxtapose against our openness to trade. We've just had a very comprehensive India-UK CETA. We've had with EFTA last year, with Australia, UAE. We're negotiating with EU. And today, in fact, in Indian Express, I have written a piece which is called Trade in the Time of Disorder, which speaks about a transition from multilateralism to bilateralism and regionalism. India has actually been taking a sort of a pioneering steps in this with over the past few years, recognizing the trends. So it just shows that India is open to and willing to negotiate a fair, balanced, non-coercive trade agreement with the United States.
In fact,
but if the other side is not willing to understand that, then we'll have to find. But here, I think we need to not get into an alarm because negotiations will still continue. Second, our trade community will respond in different ways, maybe perhaps initially absorb the tariff through cost. Maybe we can offer, easier interest loans and maybe also perhaps some ways support some of our more sensitive...
Ambassador Ashraf, sorry to interrupt you. We're just getting some breaking news precisely on what you're talking about. The government has just issued its first response, formal response on Trump's tariff announcement. This is the government's official statement. They've said they've taken note of Trump's statement and that they are studying the tariff implications. The government has said it is committed to these trade talks and committed to protecting trade interests and will protect national interests. So that's the statement that's just come out from the government at this time. I want to read that out again and I'll get a reaction from Ambassador Ashraf on that. He says, the statement says, have taken note of the Trump statement, studying tariff implications, remain committed to trade talks, committed to protecting trade interests, will protect national interest. Ambassador Ashraf, what do you think? That's what the government has said.
I mean, that's precisely what I was saying, that, we've taken note of it, we'll remain open to negotiations. 1st of August is in the end of the life over here. There will be negotiations in August, and we will take this. But I think we're very clear about our red lines, and it is something that the United States will have to accept because these are some very vital national security and national economic interests, particularly of the most vulnerable sections of our society, the farmers, the workers, the small-scale sector, the dairy farmers, etc. Those we will take into account. And I think this has been a very good, very measured response to this. And as I said, that in the immediate aftermath of this, we will have to study whether what they have announced is inclusive of that baseline 10% tariff, which in any case will apply to everyone. Second, we'll also have to examine what happens to the sectoral tariffs, which are already there. And then proceed on that basis of seeing what they negotiate with us on. Otherwise, I think in the meantime, the government will also work with the exporters to ensure that ultimately that we are able to remain competitive in the interim period till we strike a deal with the United States, which, as I said, has to be fair, balanced, legally enforceable, and it's not something which is what we are seeing in President Trump's tendency to negotiate with himself in public, raise tariffs, lower tariffs, change it in another day. So this has to be put on a predictable platform. And in the meantime, industry and the government and the financial sector will have to work. We'll have to look through whether we can also work on currencies. For example, whether we can allow a certain degree of depreciation of the rupee to compensate for higher tariffs, provide easier loans, maybe provide some degree of subsidy to some of the most difficult, sensitive export sectors in India. So all of this will be on the table now. But this is not the end of the story.
Not the end of the story. I'm going to thank you for that analysis, and it was good to have you while that statement just came in from the government. Ambassador Javed Ashraf, thank you so much for being with us here on this special edition of India Matters. Maria Shakil breaking that statement from the government first here on NDTV. Maria, what are you hearing from the corridors of power? This statement says they will protect national interests. They're studying the implications of this. Trade negotiations are still very much on. What's the government got on its mind about its next steps?
Look, Shiv, this is how the governments respond. This is how the governments react when the talks are ongoing. That's the reason why there is a great degree of caution in this statement. If you look at it, Government of India clearly saying that, yes, we are aware of what has been put out on Truth Social by Donald Trump. But when it is about India and Indian interest, the interest of the farmers, the entrepreneurs, and MSMEs is priority for the government of India. And if you would remember, Shiv, even in the White House, Prime Minister Modi was complimented by Donald Trump when he said that Prime Minister Modi is a tough negotiator. So even the U.S. side realizes that when it is about these deals, India will always put the interests of Indians first.
Maria, thanks very much for that news break. Important statement coming in from the government, and it says it is continuing to be committed to these trade talks. Okay, we'll try and get a more detailed word from the government in just a short while from now. Okay, and I finally have some time to go to my guests, and my apologies right off the bat to all of them for coming to them this late. You saw that we were on Parliament and then we had all this breaking news. I have time for one comment from each of you. I'm so sorry. Harsh Gupta, I'll quickly come to you first. What do you think of what Trump said? What are India's options right now? Negotiations still very much on. August the 1st is only a couple of days away.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. In any negotiation where the other guy is using a maximalist strategy, where I partially disagree with the Honorable Ambassador who just spoke, it's not about what you can further concede. It's also how you can inflict pain. That's very important to understand. Because, for example, Trump's tariffs are all focused on goods. He does not talk about services where America has a structural advantage. We have given a complete carte blanche to US big tech. Just to give you some numbers on that. Official trade might be just in the $10-20 billion, but if you then include numbers that is routed through Ireland, it's another $20-30 billion. The deficit we always talk about is a goods deficit, but if you include software, internet, routed, rerouted, education spent by Indians in America, actually there is a study by GTRI which shows that the deficit is gone. In fact, even might be a surplus for the US. Most important thing is, first and foremost, put US big tech on the negotiating table. Put the companies, for example, Microsoft removed Nayara's access to its own data for a time, for 1 day, yesterday, even though it's a completely incorporated Indian business. And we should not take that lying down at all. There should be punishment for that. It should not just be forgotten. Number two, we must increase the defense budget. If you do not have a stronger defense spend, indigenous especially, you will not be in a position to negotiate any kind of geopolitical or economic upside. 2% is absolute peanuts for India as a percent of GDP. Even Europe is talking about 5%, even though they're including infrastructure and all of that by 2035. Number three, we have done too much of a good thing of virtue by having extremely tight and conservative fiscal and monetary policy. This, of course, relates to the first 2 points about, how do you put the domestic demand. So again, I disagree with the ambassador. It's not time to be defensive and again start depreciating your own currencies. Create domestic demand in India. We have a lot of slack. And number five, finally, do not think of Indian IT exports or GCCs, Global Capability Centers, as a vulnerability. We have a tendency to be goody-goody front bencher boys thinking, hum ye karenge, they will remove that from our... No, there is no other talent pool in this world at that cost, at that depth and scale, which can service Fortune 500 businesses. That is actually a point of strength and negotiation, not vulnerability. We cannot appease the bully. You have to be able to inflict damage to the bully. Otherwise, this negotiation might just settle with some optical concessions. But it's not just about Trump. It will be another president later on. This is not about waiting out till the midterms next year. J.D. Vance will follow Donald Trump. Somebody else will follow the prototype. You have to hit back at the bully.
Willem, what do you think? How are you reading this? Do you think these endanger trade talks, or this is just signature Trump, hardball?
Yeah, this is not a trade deal. This is a one-sided, rock-hard move by a bargaining bully. 25% baseline tariff is punitive, even if it includes the 10%. It does not even include, most likely, the 10% BRICS tariff that the US has threatened this before, and nor does it include the penalties for purchases of fossil fuels and military equipment from Russia. So it is very aggressive. And the US can afford to do this because the US is a much more important market for India, accounting for about 11% of Indian exports, than India for the US, which is less than 3%. of US exports. But this is the beginning of negotiation which will last and which will, in all likelihood, result in India lowering some of its tariffs, which are high by international standards, outside the US now, and also removing some of the non-tariff barriers to trade, which Trump, I think, legitimately refers to. But no, this is an aggressive move trying to gain the upper hand in a tough set of negotiations.
Very interesting. Kushal, I've been following some of your posts as well on this. You said, remember, most of our exports to America are IT services. Goods exported to America are negligible. If I remember, it's less than 2%. India should look for a mutually beneficial trade deal. Let Trump type in all caps all his life. What do you think India should do back? You've heard Madhusudan, you've heard Willem as well. You've heard some of the politicians speak as well. What do you think needs to happen, Kushal?
Well, I think we need to buy more oil from Russia. That if that makes Trump throw a hissy fit, it would be so entertaining. For starters, he'll write in all caps again. I just love his all caps tweets. So for me, it's personally entertaining. See, India should not be put on a negotiating table with any country where there is a gun on one side and then you're just supposed to put your hands up. That's not how you negotiate. This is classic fluff and bluster by Trump. India should not be bothered by it. The best way to deal with Trump is not respond. Learn from the Australians, learn from the Japanese. Don't be belligerent with Trump. You feel he does these things. That's his way. He thinks he's the best negotiator, I don't know, on planet Earth. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. My whole thing is that it doesn't bother India beyond a point. It only bothers America because of all these IT services that Harsh spoke about, right? Now, if they tariff them, it's going to add to a cost to the Americans. It's not going to add a cost to the Indian side. So to assume that now something like this is going to... And remember, India has already reduced tariffs on multiple items that the Americans are already interested in selling to us. So it's not like India has not given America a goodwill gesture. So anything Trump does at this point of time is ridiculous. And at least one thing is put to rest, that Trump did not cause the ceasefire now, because he can't cause the ceasefire and then say, I will put tariffs on you. You can't have it both ways.
I'll give 30. I have enough time to give about 30 seconds to each one of you. Madhusudan, you wanted to come in quickly? Harsh?
Yeah. Shiv, the broader point here is that we are seeing the ushering in of a G2 world. If India really wants to be a genuine independent pole in this geo-economic order, we have to pay up for this. Enough rhetoric, have a defense budget, have the iron that backs what you're saying. Then you can actually remember this time Pakistan, China, for right now America are all hostile. There is no Soviet Union. Bangladesh is also in a hostile regime. India is in a very difficult spot and we are not spending as much we have to. Good defense indigenization has civilian spillovers, has innovation spillovers. It's the closest thing to a free lunch that we have in political economy today. We are wrong on this. We are being too conservative. Most politicians have to be stopped from spending too much. We have actually, in this case, out of complete sincerity, made a vice out of a virtue. We have to spend more on defense, on innovation, on infrastructure. We need domestic demand. We need to use our scale to negotiate more. There is no strategic altruism. All that is nonsense. It was never there.
I agree.
This is time to be really hardball.
Willem, do you think India will play hardball back and India should play hardball back in this situation?
I don't think she should play hardball. She should keep on negotiating and try and get a deal on the secondary sanctions over Russia and get the US tariffs down to the Japanese type levels of 15%. I don't think that under Trump anything lower is likely. Only the UK, which has a trade surplus with the US, has managed to sort of get it down to 10%. But I definitely think there is scope for calm but determined negotiation.
45 seconds left, Kushal, to you. Will India play hardball back? We've heard the prescriptions now. Hoga ya nahi hoga?
Obviously, it's going to happen. You're going to have a trade deal most likely by September or October. This is classic Trump. Look at what happened with Japan. This is exactly what happened with Japan. Now they have a trade deal with Japan. This is what he did with the United Kingdom. He's going to do this with every country. And then they say, it's like Trump is the epitome of Besharmi. That I have to admire him for that. There are many Besharams on planet Earth. There is no Besharam bigger than Trump. I think he deserves a Nobel Prize for that.
He deserves a Nobel Prize for that. Okay, we'll end it on that note. There's a lot of humor, there's a lot of histrionics, there's certainly a very thick layer of a theater of the absurd when it comes to dealing with Trump. I think that just goes with the recipe, whether it is politics, diplomacy, or trade transactions. It's definitely all there. But thank you very much. This was all too brief. Again, my apologies to all of you. I couldn't come to you for a third round of questions. I did want to do it, but that's how live TV works. So my apologies to all of you, but learned a lot. Thank you very much. It's a story in motion, and hopefully we'll get some of you back as we continue to navigate this story on the Trump tsunami that has just hit. We will leave it there for the moment.
Hello, Moto.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
तू ही तो है जिसकी सच्चाई वाली क्लैरिटी की वजह से मैं आज यहाँ हूँ।
गोल्ड प्लस सिल्वॉक्सी मिरर्स, ऐसी क्लैरिटी कि आपको सिर्फ सच नजर आए, चाहे कितने भी साल बीत जाएं।
फिनेस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24/7.
फिनेस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta.
Some say sport is a matter of life and death. The truth is, it is far more serious than that. Sport is about ecstasy and agony, about pain and suffering, about joy and much more. Some say there's no one better to tell these stories. So here I am. Join me, Boria Majumdar, on India's #1 news network.
फिनेस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta.
गोल्ड प्लस ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रिफ्लेक्टिव ग्लास लगाओ, धूप की गर्मी को दूर भगाओ और बिजली का बिल भी बचाओ।
आप एक गुंडे के कर रहे हो सर।
मेरी
आप तो
मेरा
गायकवाड is running away from NDTV's questions.
That issue is not before the High Command. It was not discussed so far.
Kolhapuri couples costing $1,300.
The noise we made finally got heard, and it's so nice that somebody took action on it.
Pictures and videos of women that were taken in the Bengaluru metro, now on Church Street and other prominent places in Bengaluru. We managed to arrest both of them.
We are bringing you now, for the very first time, is that the Air India preliminary crash report is out.
This 15-page report into 10 key findings of what really is being said in this probe report.
What's reporting without impact? NDTV 24/7.
गोल्ड प्लस ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रिफ्लेक्टिव ग्लास लगाओ, धूप की गर्मी को दूर भगाओ और बिजली का बिल भी बचाओ।
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold
CDSL
for the long term? Buy, sell or hold?
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
Preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
That they are going to pay 25%.
Yeah, that India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so. Look, they're my friends, and he's my friend. And, you know, they ended the war with Pakistan at my request, and that was great. And Pakistan did also. India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that.
So, sir, your work is heavily rich in impeccable artisanship and craft, I must say. And recently, with the whole Prada versus Kolhapuri artisan debate, how do you see this? Where do you stand? And also this whole conversation about cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. What's your take on it?
See, my personal opinion on anything other than plagiarism, which is absolutely not okay. But other than that, I think if somebody can get inspired by something which has its own sort of creative language, and create something and create a sort of statement which highlights that thing even more, rather than...
Hello everyone, this is The Last Word and I'm Maria Shakil. We focus on the two big headlines of the day. India faces a new economic challenge from US President Donald Trump, who has gone ahead and announced a 25% tariff on Indian exports, which is effective from August 1st. What will this mean for the Indian economy, diplomacy, and the future of India-US trade ties? We'll have a panel of experts to decode that for you. Half past the hour, talks have been suspended, trade is frozen, and airspace has been shut, yet cricket continues. With India and Pakistan set to clash in the Asia Cup on September 14th, a national debate has erupted. Should cricketing ties survive when everything else is on ice? Our top story. US President Donald Trump has announced 25% tariff on India, whom he called a US friend. Trump, in fact, took to Truth Social and said, and I quote him, "Over the years, we have done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country, unquote. Trump had earlier hinted at a 20 to 25% tariff on India, and the final levy was still not finalized as the two countries, remember, are in the middle of negotiations ahead of the August 1st deadline. Hours later, he announced a 25% tariff plus a penalty. The president's comment came ahead of the deadline when a slew of reciprocal tariffs is set to take effect. Let's first listen in to what Donald Trump said.
India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
That they are going to pay 25%.
Yeah, that India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so. Look, they're my friends, and he's my friend. And, you know, they ended the war with Pakistan at my request, and that was great. And Pakistan did also. You know. India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do it.
The Indian government a little while ago gave first response to Trump's tariff announcement, saying that it is studying its implications. The government added that India and the US have been engaged in negotiations on concluding a fair, balanced and mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement over the last few months. We remain committed to that objective. The government has also said that it will take all steps necessary to secure our national interests, as has been the case with other trade agreements, including the latest comprehensive economic and trade agreement with the UK. Let me bring in Surjit Bhalla first. Dr. Bhalla is an economist and former executive director of IMF for India, Bangladesh, Bhutan and Sri Lanka. Dr. Bhalla, one would say that that's how countries negotiate. Even while the deal is on, the negotiations are on, for Donald Trump to use the harshest of words and put it out on social media, is that what India is dealing with? Is this some kind of maneuvering or blackmailing? What exactly is it? Or some kind of pressure tactics?
No, I wouldn't use the term blackmail at all. Maneuvering, definitely. That's what negotiators do. But, you know, what we need to recognize is what Trump is saying, and I've said this before on your channel, is absolutely correct. We have the highest tariff rates in the world. And it's not just me. You ask any Indian economist, not the government bureaucrats, but any Indian economist, as whether we have the highest tariff rates in the world. We do. Second, as I have stated, and many others have stated, negotiating with the US for lower tariffs is in India's best interest. Don't do it because Trump wants you to do it. Do it because it is in your interest to do it. And we haven't done that. And, you know, the point I want to make, we thought that there would be a difference because of the close relationship of Modi with Mr. Trump, and the changed fortunes of India under Prime Minister Modi, that we would have the courage and the mindset to reform. But we haven't. There is no difference between what the Congress has been saying all along, vis-a-vis trade deals, etc., and what Mr. Modi is saying. So what's the difference? Again, I conclude by saying it is in our own personal interest that we reduce the tariffs. And we haven't done so. It doesn't appear that we have done so as yet.
Dr. Bhalla, another aspect of this announcement on Truth Social, which came from Donald Trump, was of penalties. So my question is, can the US unilaterally impose penalty tariffs for India's purchase of Russian military and energy goods under existing trade rules? or does this really violate WTO norms?
You know, this keeps coming up. That's a very good question. Does it violate WTO norms? You know, the two biggest trading partners in the world, not necessarily partners, the two biggest trading nations in the world are US and China. And they have continuously violated WTO rules. You see the fact, basically, which WTO rules allow you to export to another country, like China does to Vietnam, and for Vietnam to go and send it to the US under the stamp of China, of Vietnam. So let us not have that crutch that we are playing by the rules when nobody else does, and especially not the two biggest trading nations in the world.
And would you say that this announcement also reflects some kind of personal frustration with India's trade policies from Trump's first term, or a broader Republican shift away from viewing India as a strategic partner?
Look, as I keep saying, this has, if you will, nothing to do with Trump or the Republicans or their relationship with India. We are our worst enemy. We have imposed this on ourselves, and it's about time we realized that it's in our own interest to do this. I don't care whether it is, let's take the example of the UK. We have reached a trade deal with the UK. Well, the trade deal with the UK had nothing on BITs, the bilateral investment treaties. That's been postponed. We keep postponing. So this is what we've been doing. We've had 3 months or 4 months or 5 months to negotiate with the US, and we are at exactly the same place as we were 5 months ago. So what have we negotiated? And last, one of the items of disagreement between the US and India are farm tariffs. Now, the Supreme Court, after the farm laws failed, after the farm laws were withdrawn, the Supreme Court ordered a survey of farmers in India as to how many of them would be in favor of the farm laws. 87% of Indian farmers are in favor of farm laws. So why are we catering to the 13%, the big guys with the deep state, the bureaucrats who control farm policy, and the industrialists who control farm policy? Why aren't we in favor of the farmers? 87%. So therefore, it is us. Please, I plead with India, and I've pleaded with Indian officials and everybody. It is our problem. Don't blame it on Trump, or don't blame it on nationalism, or whatever your interest might be.
All right, Dr. Surjit Bhalla, really appreciate your time. Let me bring in Ajay Dua, former Commerce Secretary of India. Gurcharan Das is an economist. Anjali Prasad is India's former ambassador to the World Trade Organization. We have Ambassador Sajanhar joining us as well. Ms. Prasad, I'm going to begin with you, because lots being said about this kind of announcement and also penalty which has been announced. So the question that I asked Mr. Bhalla, as someone who has worked at the WTO, does this actually violate WTO norms?
Thank you for having me on your show, Maria. First of all, may I say that I am a bureaucrat. I was a bureaucrat. So, I am also trained in economics. Now, if I were to answer your question in one word, it is yes. It violates all principles and norms of the multilateral trading system. You cannot unilaterally alter your tariff, impose such tariffs on any member country. That is one. Secondly, this penalty. What is this penalty? we don't understand until we actually see it in black and white. Penalty tariffs, there is nothing like penalty tariffs. You impose certain duties when you violate certain provisions of the WTO, like safeguards, anti-dumping, things like that. But to impose duties just because, in your opinion, a country has so-called high tariffs, and then impose certain so-called penalties, rather, is something that is completely ultra-vires the WTO rules.
All right, thank you for putting that in context for our viewers. Ajay Dua, let's get into specifics now, because there's a lot of concern about the sectors. What specific Indian goods or sectors will be hit by this 25% tariff, and how might this impact bilateral trade volumes between US and India?
Maria, as you know, India's exports to the US are about $86 billion. As against it, our imports from there are much less, at about 45 billion, giving a trade deficit of 41 billion in our favor. So we have a trade surplus. The US's concern has been that this persisting trade imbalance between India and the US needed to be corrected. India should be importing more goods from the US. So we have in the past, I'm giving this background, we have in the past made conscious efforts to bridge this gap. If you include the services imports from the US, what the gap I mentioned was in the merchandise exports, merchandise trade, including royalties, services, and the arms which we get from the US. If you include that, the surplus is already in favor of the US. It is a trade balance clearly of all the goods and services, then the US is not badly off. Having said that, I'll also like to point out that the average tariff, which President Trump talks about so loudly and so frequently, that India is the highest tariff country in the world, the average tariff of the goods which we import from the US, and that includes his favorite Harley-Davidson motorbikes, about which so much has been said in the last 20 years, is 13.2%. The difference, and what the US levies on our exports is about 3.2%. So there is a differential of 10%. But that's not unprecedented in world trade. I did hear Dr. Surjit Bhalla talk about it and say that India is a highly taxed country, etc. All that's very fine. I wanted to just put it in with facts and figures. The differential at 13.2%, we look good. It does look considerable, but it is not humongous considering that our trade with the US is limited to $129 billion.
Okay.
Second point I'd like to make is that the goods which you asked me about,
yes,
what could get hit is we export a lot of gems and jewelry items to the US. That's probably one of our largest items. A second large item is automobiles and the components. We also export, actually, in the top 10 items which are there, we also figures petroleum. We are a large exporter because of our low cost of refining to US, China, as well as Netherlands, a large exporter of petroleum. We refine it. Some of our biggest refineries do that. And that was added in our figure for 86.5%, 86.5 billion. And also, we are an exporter of pharmaceuticals. In addition, textiles and tea, our traditional exports, also have a fairly large presence in our figure of 86 billion. So all of these There is a certain duty already there. 10% was levied across the board on all the items by President Trump as soon as his second term started. So is the differential going to be only 15%, or is this 25% over and above the 10% which was there? That's yet to be clarified. And finally, I think that while negotiations are underway,
Yes.
5 rounds of negotiations have been held. If we are able to enter into a bilateral trade agreement in the next few days, I think the burden of this higher rate of duty of 25%, which is coming for geopolitical reasons rather than whatever President Trump might have said about it being highly.
Gurcharan Das, a response from you, and then I'll speak to Ambassador Sajjanhar with regards to the strategic autonomy. Please go ahead. Gurcharan Das.
India's number one priority is jobs.
Yes.
45% of our working population is on the farm, and only half of that is needed. And so therefore half is redundant. And the problem is that we have failed to create an industrial revolution. And to do so, we have to export. No nation became a middle-class nation from a poor nation without exports. So therefore, the best examples were the Asian countries, the Asian tigers who become middle-class countries. And they did it through labor-intensive manufactured exports to the United States primarily. So therefore, our tariffs need to be competitive to the East Asian, to the ASEAN countries in particular, and countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, whose tariffs are 20 and 19%. So we will be disadvantaged, and if this goes through, this is bad news. Even the great Apple story that we are in the midst of, the iPhones, is threatened now with this. So the point for India is, Surjit is absolutely right. It's in our own interest to do this, to join up with the global value chains. And so the attitude today is still the attitude of the past, and we have to look to the future. And therefore, I would say that this is bad news. I would hope that our trade agreement we should put some priority and energy and urgency to the trade negotiations, because frankly, India needs the United States. So it's in our own interest to look to the future. And therefore, I think that really if this goes through, this is bad news for India. We are giving up our future if we allow this kind. And it is, as Surjit pointed out, it's our fault that we are in this situation. And so let's do what is in our own interest.
Okay. Ambassador Sajjanhar, how do you think this tariff decision will affect India's strategic autonomy? Because given Trump's criticism of its defense ties, our defense ties with Russia and energy trade amidst this entire Ukraine war.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maria. If you permit, I'll just make one or two comments on the discussions we've been having so far. I think having low tariffs is something like talking about motherhood and apple pie. Everyone says it's very good to have low tariffs. And it's not that India has said that we will not have low tariffs. We have stated we are going to have low tariffs. We have reduced tariffs on 90% of our goods that are coming from the United Kingdom. We have signed FTAs with Australia. We have signed FTAs with UAE. We are going to have an FTA with the European Union. With the United States, it was only a bilateral trade agreement. It was a mini agreement trade deal. It was not a full-fledged FTA. And there also, I think there was, comments have been made, we need to give priority, energy. I think we've been giving priority and energy. That is why Prime Minister Modi visited the United States on 13th of February, within a month of Trump taking over, because we are interested in this relationship. Our Commerce Minister, their Commerce Minister, they have come to India. We have tried to negotiate this deal. And there are a couple of items. All others, what I understand from press reports, they were resolved, but there were issues like, some of the agricultural products, soya, etc., that Mr. Trump is particularly interested. As far as dairy products are concerned, as far as GMOs are concerned, those are some of the red line issues on which we have stood firm. And I think what Mr. Trump has come out and the sort of language that he has used, I think it's both an unfriendly act and an unfriendly language, in terms of, obnoxious, and it shows the peak. He's trying to sort of, make a point. Now, coming to, the point, the last point here also is, it's not only that the penalty that he's talking about is ultra vires the WTO. It is, the coercion that he is using to reduce tariffs outside the ambit of the WTO. That is also ultra vires, because that is the platform. WTO is the platform where countries go to discuss and decide and negotiate tariffs. And we have negotiated our tariffs on different products, on different countries in the WTO. So we are very much in consonance with our international and global rights. Now, as far as, the question that you have put, I think it definitely does leave a bad taste in the mouth. But then that having been said, I'll make 2 points. Number one, our relationship with the United States is not based only on trade. There are so many other issues, whether it is technology, whether it is defense, whether it is our diaspora, whether it is, in terms of geopolitics, our cooperation in Quad and counterterrorism. So it's a huge spectrum of relations. So I think that we need to continue. We need to focus on how we can get out of this problem that Trump has put us in.
Okay.
Also focus very much on our FTA that we have signed with UK, have an FTA with EU also, without much loss of time, and look at alternative. I can understand it's a $86 billion trading relationship with the United States. It's a significant relationship.
Okay.
We need to preserve it, but then we need to go out also and look at other markets and other partners also.
Okay, I have just enough time for the last word to the woman on the panel, Ms. Prasad. What options does India have through WTO, bilateral diplomacy or counter tariff to respond to this?
Maria, you see, a number of options are available. As per the rules, number one, you can go and dispute against this. But then disputes take a long time to fructify, to settle, and you don't get what is called a temporary stay. So you might have to suffer whatever you will with this action. That is one. Second, you retaliate, have the guts to retaliate and say that if this is done unilaterally, we will be forced to do something unilaterally on the items that the US exports to India. But we need to actually take very studied action. We need to read the fine print. This has to come out as a notification. It can't come out as a social media statement. We'll need to see what items get affected, how they get affected, whether at all we would be in such a lot of trouble, or in the medium term, we would be able to find alternative markets. So as for the rules, we can go to dispute.
Okay.
But do you want to take a dispute which could take years to settle?
That's right.
And yeah, and so it is always, the preferred option is always to talk across the table.
Okay.
What is called our Article 22 consultations, which are prior to taking a member state to dispute. So we can at the most start Article 22 consultations if we want to be very tough on the rules. But the ideal thing would be to sit across the table and talk it out.
All right.
The second point I really want to make is that this whole business about a bilateral deal is again outside the rules of the WTO. There's nothing like a bilateral deal that you can have, because whatever tariffs you reduce or increase would have to be multilateralized. That is one. You can't exceed your bound tariffs in any way.
Okay.
That is the second. So if you have space between applied and bound tariffs to play around with, and you think that you can, it's in your national interest, it's another matter. But to say that this will remain a bilateral deal, I really don't think so, because either you have an FTA, which is a derogation from WTO rules, which you can have just bilaterally. But this kind of a deal, which is neither here nor there, is certainly not going to be restricted to the United States.
All right.
The competitive exporters might make better use of it than the United States.
All right, Ms. Prasad, a pleasure having you on my show. Ashok Janhar, Gurcharan Das, Ajay Dua, thank you for joining us
Thank you so
on the
much.
show tonight.
Thank you.
Shifting focus to another story now, the Pahalgam horror is still fresh in country's mind. The anger with Pakistan has not subsided, nor will it anytime soon. In such a situation, in such a scenario, is a cricket match with Pakistan feasible and tolerable? BCCI has green flagged India-Pakistan match on September 14th in UAE as part of the Asia Cup tournament, but the decision has outraged citizens who are asking, is this the time to play cricket with Pakistan, especially when India has snapped all its trade ties with Pakistan? Will BCCI prioritize country over cricket? First up the story, then I bring in the guests.
Talks, no. Trade, no. Airspace, no. Water, no. But cricket, to play or not to play.
They're up against
Amid the national debate over India-Pakistan's match in the upcoming Asia Cup tournament in UAE, the legends have upped the game. Seniors India team has pulled out of the World Championship of Legends semi-final against Pakistan. The WCL is being played in England, and India and Pakistan did not face each other in the league stage. But will the BCCI take the Legends lead and boycott the Asia Cup matches with Pakistan? India has snapped all ties with Pakistan since the Pahalgam terror attack. The scheduled India-Pakistan match at Asia Cup on September 14 has evoked strong reactions. BCCI has come under severe criticism for going ahead with the match, though the emotions are still running high over Pahalgam and post-Operation Sindoor. From social media, the issue also spilled into Parliament, where AIMIM MP Asaduddin Owaisi questioned the board's nod for the game.
किस सूरत से आप पाकिस्तान से क्रिकेट मैच खेलेंगे जब हम पानी नहीं दे रहे हैं? 80% पानी पाकिस्तान का हम रोक रहे हैं। ये कहकर के पानी और खून नहीं बहेगा, आप क्रिकेट मैच खेलेंगे? मैडम, मेरा ज़मीर तो गवारा नहीं करता कि मैं उस मैच को देखूंगा। क्या इस हुकूमत में इतनी हिम्मत है कि उन 25 मरने वालों को फोन करके कहे कि देखो हमने ऑपरेशन सिंदूर में बदला ले लिया, अब तुम पाकिस्तान का मैच देखो?
However, Top sources have confirmed to NDTV that the clash will not be cancelled. They maintain that this is not a bilateral contest, but a match in a multi-nation tournament. If India does not play or forfeit the match, it will give Pakistan a huge advantage. This will be like giving them a walkover, which is not desirable. India and Pakistan are likely to come face to face on 3 occasions in the UAE. The issue has also divided the cricketing fraternity, while former captain Mohammad Azharuddin is against India playing Pakistan. Former captain and BCCI chief Sourav Ganguly has changed his tune and is now for sports to go on.
I was always very clear on that. If you play with everything, otherwise don't play. I mean, this is for anything, for that matter, for anything. So when you don't have good ties, there's no point. Playing in ICC tournament or the ACC tournament.
India-Pakistan cricket has always depended on government permission. So if the government allows the games to be happen, it will happen. India-Pakistan have always played in Asia Cup and World Cups. The bilaterals have not been happening for a while. So nothing has changed.
The Sports Ministry has maintained that any bilateral sporting engagement with Pakistan is out of question at this point. But in multilateral contests, it would go by the Olympic Charter, which prohibits any discrimination based on political issues, which is why the government has stated that it would not stop Pakistan from coming to India for international events. However, the 8-nation Asia Cup is not an ICC event and will be conducted by the Asian Cricket Council, ACC, which is currently led by the Pakistan Cricket Board chief. But can sports go on when nothing else can? Can profit override national sentiment and patriotism? Will the men in blue go the legends' way, or will the BCCI continue to have its say?
Joining me on the show tonight, Madan Lal, former Indian cricketer. We have Rakesh Rao, senior sports journalist. Akash Gupta is a senior sports journalist, and cricket commentator Sunil Doshi is also joining us. Madan Lal, starting with you, at a time when diplomatic ties are virtually frozen, cross-border terrorism remains a concern. Is it tenable for India to play Pakistan on a global cricket stage?
If you ask me my personal opinion, we should not play against Pakistan. But again, the government has given the permission, and ACC is organizing this event. And ACC, the India, Pakistan, and other country comes in with the ACC. So they who was sitting there? One of our person was sitting there, Mr. Rajiv Shukla was sitting there about all these things, whether we should play or not. And the government has decided not to play bilateral series, but they can play outside. But there's a double standard, I think. You see, they have cancelled the WCT match, but they are playing in the Asia Cup. I can't understand, You have to make a policy somewhere. You have to say, right, we are not playing. You have to take a decision. But again, they are saying that we are looking for a Commonwealth game, Asian game, and the Olympics. And looking at all these things, projecting the country, they have given the permission.
Okay.
This whenever this India-Pakistan match comes, series comes, so there is always going to be controversy. Pakistan is not going to stop. They're going to do the same thing again and again.
Okay. Rakesh Rao, the question certainly is this dual policy consistent or simply selective morality? Because if it's ACC tournaments in which India is justifying to play Pakistan, then why refuse bilateral series?
Maria, I have been very, very clear on this, no matter whether there was, there's this thing about India choosing to play at neutral venues or not. Once you decide India is not going to play Pakistan, that's it. In the sense, after what happened in Pahalgam, Our ministers say that the Operation Sindoor is not over; it's still on. And then BCCI, obviously with the connivance of the central government or the express consent, Rajiv Shukla goes there. I mean, in fact, he attends the ACC meeting. Obviously, when he says yes, he could have taken that decision on his own. That means government has backed BCCI's proposal to whether to play Asia Cup or not. If you remember, not so long ago, India had made it very clear that we are not going to take part in the Asia Cup. Don't forget, it's an ACC tournament, all right, but India is the host. What prevents you from saying, take away the hosting rights from us? The situation doesn't allow us to play this time around. Let the situation be any different. Nothing has happened. Even if you go into appeal in a court of law, the first, and if you seek relief or anything, the first thing that the judge asks is, what has happened between the last date of hearing and today? There has to be a different situation, a different set of proof for you to seek relief. Here, there's no such thing has happened. India has just decided, all right, and where they're hiding is that it is not a bilateral thing. It is a thing where a lot of other countries are there, multilateral stuff. That we have heard it all in the past. But what happened to Pahalgam? What happened to Operation Sindoor? What happened to the sentiments of the common man on the street? I fail to understand this. I mean, I'm actually appalled, which I've maintained. I'm surprised. I'm deeply disappointed by the stand taken by the central government, by the BCCI, and they haven't paid any heed to how the national sentiments prevail at this point in time, the existing ones. They can talk about Olympic Games, they can talk about the IOC Charter. Sorry, 2025 July, I don't think this is the time to take that decision. Within 100 days of what happened, we have forgotten everything, and we still want to ensure that cricket and cricketers don't suffer. I don't back that at all.
Akash, the point here is that if we are not playing Pakistan, and if the government decides that there'll be no question of having any kind of sporting ties with Pakistan, shouldn't that be formally announced? I mean, why, if after every terror act, when the government has responded in the last 10 years, we have seen some kind of chatter around some tournament, some cricket engagement with Pakistan, and then it comes to a neutral venue. Why have any ties at all? Shouldn't India agree that when it is about Pakistan, there'll be, it's almost a case of banning a sporting nation? You have to unmute yourself, Akash.
I completely agree with you, Maria. This is actually something that I have been talking about on a couple of shows as well. See, I think the two things here. One is that this is a case of complete confused messaging. Because on the one hand, you are trying to tell the world that stamp Pakistan with the stamp of being a terrorist state. And on the other hand, you want to go ahead and play cricket with Pakistan. Now, if I could go back in time, there was a time when South Africa was under apartheid law, and India was one of the first, if not the first country, which said we are not going to have any cricketing relations with South Africa. So I completely agree that some sort of very clear messaging needs to come out where everybody is on the same page and they say, look, if we are not having anything to do with Pakistan, and if we have no relationship with them whatsoever, and for just cause, then why go ahead and play cricket with them, regardless of whether it's a multilateral tournament? The messaging that comes out is we are not playing bilateral cricket with Pakistan, but when it comes to multilateral tournaments, there are certain compulsions. And of course, there's the financial angle, there's the whole economy of cricket that has to be taken into account. I understand that. But at the end of the day, for the common man, for the person watching on television or cheering in the stadiums, he or she is not going to understand these nuances. Because on the one hand, you are saying this is what Pakistan is doing. They're coming in and they are literally killing Indians. And on the other hand, you're saying, let's go and play cricket with Pakistan. Now, there is a certain argument, Maria, that politics and cricket and politics and sport overall should be separated. And I am all for that. But these but this relationship that India has had with Pakistan, especially given what happened in the recent past, has changed all of that. That is point number one. Point number two, I think it is high time that someone steps up to the plate and takes responsibility to take this call. Now, if you ask the BCCI, they will say that at the end of the day, it's the government's call. And let me put this very, very clearly on the table. The fact that Mr. Naqvi announced it on social media that these are going to be the dates of the Asia Cup, he could not have done it without being told that he has got a green light from the Indian side as well. Remember, as far as the Pakistani side is concerned, Mr. Naqvi himself is the interior minister. So there is a direct political link there, and he could not have announced it without getting the nod from the Indian side. But if you ask the government or anyone from the government, then the common refrain that you hear from them is that they don't have any control over the BCCI, which still continues to be an autonomous body. The National Sports Governance Bill, we all know, has been tabled, but it hasn't been passed by both houses. And of course, hasn't got the president's consent yet. And once that happens, there is a clause that the sports ministry can take these calls on behalf of the BCCI. But are you actually telling me that if someone in a position of authority picks up a telephone and says, look, let's not do this, will the others not fall in line? So as far as I am concerned, there's a lot of confused messaging happening. And even for people like us who follow the game on a regular basis, we need one single thing where someone comes and says, look, either we are playing or we are not playing. This somewhere in the middle.
I agree with you, Akash. There's a lot of confused signaling here. And given the kind of diplomatic muscle India has within the ICC and global cricketing community, Mr. Doshi, why has India not managed to isolate Pakistan the way it has done so diplomatically and politically?
नहीं, आप बिल्कुल you are taking a very correct point, because it's not that you are not playing with them. Basically, they should be separated from the whole cricketing and other sporting activities, you know, because जैसे कि हम हिंदी में भी कहते हैं कि आतंकवाद एक असभ्य हरकत है और जो वो क्रिकेट है वो सभ्य लोगों का खेल है। तो कहते हैं ना कि सभ्य लोगों की बस्ती में असभ्य लोगों का क्या ज़रूरत है। तो ये बात ज़रूर है कि ये दुनिया को हमें बताना चाहिए कि पाकिस्तान इस तरह आतंकवाद में आगे बढ़ रहा है और दुनिया भर में इस बात को मालूम है लोगों को कि आप पाकिस्तान क्या कर रहा है और उनके कारण दुनिया भर में जितनी अस्थिरता फैली हुई है आतंकवाद के संदर्भ में। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि दुनिया भर में ये बात फैलानी चाहिए, उनको खेल के सभी क्षेत्रों से अलग करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए। हम अलग हो जाएं, we become separated and we are not we are not able to take part. Tomorrow suppose we take part in javelin, and Indian person say is pitted against a Pakistan person who is now a gold medalist. Tomorrow we can't forego the event. Tomorrow India is going to play a T20 cricket in Olympic. Will not forego it. So main thing is that somebody, I mean, instead of our going out कि हम आपसे गुस्सा हो गए, हम आपसे नाराज हुए, हम अलग हो जा रहे हैं, इसके बजाय लोगों को ये बताने दो कि सबको उनसे नाराज होने दो, क्योंकि वो असभ्य हरकत कर रहे हैं। क्रिकेट सभ्य लोगों का खेल है, इसमें असभ्य लोगों का कोई हाथ नहीं है, उनकी कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है। तो वहाँ पर भारत की जीत हो सकती है, लेकिन हम अगर गुस्सा करके अलग हो जाएंगे तो मेरे ख्याल से दिस विल बी इंडिया's loss.
Okay, so Rakesh Rao, would refusing to play Pakistan undermine India's dominance on the cricket field, or would it send a stronger global message about where we have drawn the line?
Maria, I have maintained this for a very long time, and I'm, at the risk of sounding very repetitive, let me say this again. That India, at this point in time, less than 100 days, we are actually taking a somersault from our position. We should not be doing this, what we have actually decided to do. That is one. Number two, if we say that if we are not going to play Pakistan, the kind of, the kind of ramifications that we are likely to face, all I'm saying is, don't play Asia Cup this time around because you are the host. You have the right to decline to host the event. Period. That is about Asia Cup. Going forward, we are looking too far ahead. I am telling you, tomorrow another attack happens. Then what will be the stand? Then the ACC's, the ACC's commitment to the broadcasters. That is also, that will take a beating. All the stands, everything that we are talking about at this point in time. If there's a Pahalgam 2, what happens? Everything changes, the equation changes. Then the government will say, no, then we are the ones who are going to take a call. BCCI is not going to take a call. But that has been the stand. Every time Pakistan invites India to play or Pakistan decides to host an ICC event, it is a foregone conclusion that India is not going to travel. And the BCCI says that unless the government allows us to go, we won't go. But in this case, suddenly the sports ministry says BCCI is an autonomous unit. How do you remember these things so selectively? Why can't you take a stand? I'm really surprised that day ACC announced the schedule, Indian side has been silent. There's been no official word from the board, from the ministry, from the government. Why? That means they've already told Rajiv Shukla to go ahead and express India's consent to them. A muted one at that, but that is what has given ACC the right to declare the schedule and so on and so forth. So I'm not waiting for anything else to happen. I think India has agreed. Tomorrow we are going to see India going to play there. But I wish and play something happens between now and September 9 and India doesn't play. That is A. And boycotting Pakistan on every kind of a platform, it doesn't matter because India is a cricket-loving country. If Nadeem and Neeraj are up against each other tomorrow, nobody is going to bother. Nobody is going to say, why is Neeraj taking part in the same event? But India and Pakistan playing even an under-19 cricket tomorrow, that will become headlines and me and you will be sitting on a show like this and talking about it. It doesn't happen with any other event. Let there be athletics, let there be table tennis, badminton, any sport. Nobody gives a rat's ass there. But the point is, you have to understand that India-Pakistan cricket, be it a women's cricket game or 2020, anything, everybody wakes up. That is what the problem is. So boycott Pakistan as far as Asia Cup is concerned. Just take a decision, not host the decision. That is because we are the host. Let things happen as they happen. But this time of the year, this time in time, please don't play Pakistan.
Okay, so then in that case, Madan Lal, one may ask, what will it take for India to take that stand? And also, can India really afford to pull out of an ACC tournament match without facing fines or sanctions? Or do you feel that BCCI can lobby for changes in the ACC's stance on ties with state sponsors of terror?
See, Maria, BCCI is not going to pull out. They're going to play. It's as simple as that. मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि नहीं करेंगे ये, और ये डिसीजन भी नहीं लेंगे. डिसीजन इन्होंने जो लिया है, that's why they are playing. And Nakabi, there is another thing, which is a commercial angle. This India-Pakistan matches makes a lot of money, and Pakistan needs money. We are better off, financially. But nothing is going to happen to the Indian cricket team. They're going to still the same. But it is going to damage Pakistan, not us. But stand कौन लेगा? Nobody is going to take a stand. I'm telling you. Whatever you say, पुलवामा की आप बात करते हैं, हमारे जो लोग हैं कितने ज्यादा उनको आहिस्ता बोलते चले जा रहे हैं. ये बड़ी गलत बात है. कितने लोगों ने, जितने भी ज्यादा लोग शोर मचा रहे हैं, भी हमें नहीं खेलना चाहिए, ये नहीं करना चाहिए, तो उनकी हमदर्दी के लिए कौन गया है वहां पे? कहाँ उनको लुक आफ्टर करने के लिए लोग जा रहे हैं? जिनके तो चले गए, जिन लोगों की डेथ हुई है, उनसे जाके पूछिए ना, वो क्या फील करते हैं? वो तो बेचारे, उनके लिए तो सारी उम्र का लिया वो दाग दबा लग गया. बट ये हमारी आदत है, हमारी हैबिट है. We keep on forgetting. And then it comes to the cricket matches, then it comes to the financial, then it comes to the ICC tournament, the ACC tournament. We're not playing at home, then we're playing outside. It's going to be same like this, whatever you say is going to be the same. But if I ask me, I will never have any tie with Pakistan, because unless they stop all this terrorism, that sort of thing. That's my personal view. And they will do it again. You wait for 1 year or two.
You have made a very passionate argument, and so have Rakesh Rao sir. But I want to understand then, why is it continuing? If this is not really reflecting the national sentiment, the Indian public feels today that Pakistan should be punished. You have stopped, we have put the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. Then what is stopping you from ensuring that even the cricketing ties are stopped? Why do you think we are not able to do it?
Because we are not strong enough to take a decision. Simple as that. Because आप decision ले लीजिए ना, एक बार कि हम नहीं खेलेंगे. और सेंटीमेंट जो लोगों के हैं वो देखिए, ये हमारे कंट्री में बहुत एक बड़ी आदत है. ये 15 दिन, 20 दिन, 50 दिन, 100 दिन, उसके साथ आहिस्ता हम उसके ऊपर पानी फिरता चला जाता है. जो कि जिनके, जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा ना, जिनके चले जाते हैं लोग, उनको पूछिए. उनके लिए तो एवरीथिंग इज गॉन. तो ये चीजें स्ट्रॉन्ग डिसीजन लेना बड़ा जरूरी है बीसीसीआई के लिए. बट डिसाइड तो बीसीसीआई नहीं किया, यहाँ गवर्नमेंट ने डिसाइड किया ना. पब्लिक ने तो डिसाइड नहीं किया. यहाँ पर पब्लिक अगर आप ओपिनियन लेंगे तो पब्लिक तो हमेशा कहे कि आप मैच मत खेलिए पाकिस्तान के. तो ये दैट्स व्हाट माय ओपिनियन इज कि इट्स गोइंग टू बी लाइक दिस ऑल मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम.
All right, Madan Lal, Rakesh Rao, Akash and Sushil Doshi, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We certainly hope, because there's a lot of time till 14th of September, there is a rethink on this, because that's not reflecting the national sentiment of the country. An India-Pakistan match at this point is certainly avoidable. A quick break and then we return with some more news.
Hello, Moto.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
तू ही तो है जिसकी सच्चाई वाली क्लैरिटी की वजह से मैं आज यहाँ हूँ.
गोल्ड प्लस सिल्वॉक्सी मिरर्स, ऐसी क्लैरिटी कि आपको सिर्फ सच नजर आए, चाहे कितने भी साल बीत जाएं.
Finisher Windows, beautiful and durable designs. Installation से maintenance की lifelong customer service. आपके घर में Finisher नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए.
Fine, finer Finisher.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru.
Fierce discussion over Operation Sindoor continued in Parliament. Home Minister Amit Shah today spoke in the Rajya Sabha. This came a day after his fiery speech in the Lok Sabha. Rahul Gandhi, remember, continued to target the Prime Minister, now questioning his silence on former US President Donald Trump's claims. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has issued a sharp rebuttal. Another highlight was when Samajwadi Party MP and veteran actor Jaya Bachchan sparked a row today after she questioned Operation Sindoor's name and asked why it was named so when the Pahalgam terror attack actually destroyed the Sindoor of so many women. Let's listen in. I'm leaving you with this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow.
There was no cause. Prime Minister, between Prime Minister and President Trump. मैं उनको कहना चाहता हूं वो कान खोल के सुन लें कि 22 अप्रैल से 16 जून तक एक भी फोन कॉल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप और प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी के बीच में नहीं.
Prime Minister has not said that Trump is lying. It's obvious what has happened. सबको मालूम है. बोल नहीं पाए. That is the reality. नहीं, क्योंकि सच्चाई है ना. अगर PM ने बोल दिया तो फिर वो खुल के बोलेगा और वो पूरी सच्चाई रख देगा, तो इसलिए नहीं बोल पा रहे। नहीं, अभी क्या होगा, अभी वो कह रहा है, वो कह क्यों रहा है? क्योंकि वो अपनी ट्रेड डील चाहता है, तो वहाँ पे दबाएगा इनको। आप देखना कैसी ट्रेड डील बनती है।
एक तो मैं आप लोगों को बधाई दूंगी कि आपने ऐसे लेखकों को रखा हुआ है जो बड़े बड़े नाम देते हैं। ये नाम सिंदूर दिया क्यों? सिंदूर तो उजड़ गया लोगों का, जो मारे गए, जिनकी पत्नियां रह गईं।
प्लीज
आप बोलिए। प्लीज आइदर यू स्पीक और आई विल स्पीक।
जज आप बोलिए प्लीज। एड्रेस द चेयर।
मैं छोड़ूंगी।
यू एड्रेस द चेयर।
आई विल नॉट।
जो आप बोल रहे हैं वही रिकॉर्ड में जाएगा, केवल जो आप बोल रहे हैं वही रिकॉर्ड में जाएगा।
When you speak, I don't interrupt. When a woman speaks, I never interrupt. So please, mind your tongue.
अब पृथ्वीराज चौहान अकेले नहीं है, उनके बाद जया बच्चन भी कहती है कि ऑपरेशन सिंदूर का नाम सिंदूर क्यों रखा। सोचे किस प्रकार की मानसिकता है। मतलब कि पहले ऑपरेशन महादेव के नाम पर सवाल खड़े करते हैं, सांप्रदायिक बताते हैं पृथ्वीराज चौहान। उससे पहले उदित राज ने बोला ऑपरेशन सिंदूर सांप्रदायिक है, और अब जया बच्चन बोलती हैं कि सिंदूर नाम क्यों रखा। आपके पास लेखक बहुत अच्छे हैं जया बच्चन जी। सिंदूर आतंकियों ने उजाड़ा, पर वही सिंदूर केवल श्रृंगार नहीं, शक्ति का भी परिचय है। वही सिंदूर सामर्थ्य का भी परिचय है। यही संदेश देने के लिए ऑपरेशन सिंदूर नाम रखा गया।
Hello, Moto.
Forget 10,000 steps. What if just 7,000 a day was all it took to live longer and healthier? A major new study published in the Lancet Public Health has found that walking around 7,000 steps a day is strongly associated with better health and a lower risk of dying early. Researchers analyzed data from over 160,000 adults and found that people who walk approximately 7,000 steps a day had significantly lower risks for a wide range of chronic diseases. Compared to those who walk just 2,000 steps daily, these individuals saw a 47% reduction in all-cause mortality, 25% drop in cardiovascular disease, 14% lower risk of type 2 diabetes, 22% reduction in depression, 38% decline in dementia risk, 28% fewer falls, and a 6% reduction in cancer risk. Unlike earlier studies that mostly focused on heart health or death rates, this is the first major research effort to comprehensively examine the impact of daily steps on multiple health outcomes. The review included 57 studies, of which 31 were analyzed in detail through meta-analysis, making this the most extensive data set to date on how walking affects health. Interestingly, the study also shows that even 2,000 steps per day provides better health outcomes than being inactive. While benefits for some conditions like heart disease
Good evening, welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program, a storm brews across the Pacific as former President Trump threatens to slap steep tariffs on our nation's exports to America. What is Trump's reasoning? To shield American jobs and curb our trade surplus. But there's a sharper edge, additional tariffs if India continues its fuel imports, branding them a prop for hostile regimes. Now, this isn't just trade policy, it's a challenge to our sovereignty. India has always made the point that we will continue to import oil from Russia. Now, these tariffs could hit our textiles, pharmaceuticals, IT sectors very hard. It will also raise costs for American consumers. It potentially risks thousands of Indian jobs. The fuel penalty stings deeper, targeting our energy security while ignoring India's complex geopolitical balancing act. Yes, we import oil from Russia, but aren't we also investing billions in renewables? Is what Trump is doing fair at all? Now, Donald Trump's move demands a response. It's a test of India's resilience. Some say that we face these challenges and we'll work that relationship with America once again. Well, joining us now, Ambassador Manjeev Puri. I'm also joined by Dr. Anshul Avijit of the Congress and Rajat Sethi, the economist. Ambassador Puri, how do we resolve this mess with America?
Vishnu, thank you very much for having me on the program. Look, we have an ongoing set of relationships with the United States. And even on the matter of tariffs, their trade team is coming here towards the end of August. Look, I don't think this was particularly unexpected. The figures, exactly 25%, etc., may have been expected to be a little lower, 17 that the Indonesians got. And the fact that we are importing oil from Russia, and they've been saying about it, and you know that we have been on record, our ministers have said, look, we have to do what we have to do for our national interest and for the well-being of our people. We've said it. Now, therefore, these things are there. They are okay. This is the way the world sort of interacts, and hardball politics is being played by President Trump. We are a large country, a very large player, but also a country which believes that good relations with the United States is important, and I think we will continue to deal with it. I want to make one or two small points to you. Our total trade with the United States is about $125 billion. We export about 85 and they export about 40. Our trade to the United States, principally our exports to the United States, consist of bulk drugs. I'm not so sure they can easily replace them so easily, and polished diamonds, etc. So, you know, Vishnu, it isn't such a simple matter. This tariffs is not a straightforward matter. Mr. Trump and his advisors argue it's great for the United States. Most economists say that it'll hurt you, at least in the short run. We'll see what happens, but it gives a signal, as you very rightly said. It signals that, you know, are you truly friend or you're not? But I would separate that. I would say, let's look at it like this. This is a relationship between two large economies. Mr. Trump is doing what he thinks is good for his politics and for his country. We need to do what is good for us. Continue our engagement with them. That's important.
All right. Anshul Avijit, do you believe that India needs to continue our engagement with the United States? Donald Trump says something in the morning and changes his mind by the evening.
No, Vishnu, this was not an engagement. There has been no engagement. There was no negotiation. This is a one-way street. You know, this is a classic case of India getting bullied by the bully. The Modi government can bare its fangs to the opposition, to the people of India, but it can't do it to the US. It hasn't been negotiating. There have been 5 trips. Mr. Piyush Goyal has gone there a couple of times. What was the end of it? What was the conclusion? It's been zilch. They have been terms have been dictated and we are forced to follow it. Doesn't speak well of our foreign policy, doesn't speak, and by the way, everything will now be affected, right? So all these years of currying favor with the Modi government and Abki Baar Trump Sarkar Namaste Trump and all that has come to zilch. That's number one. Our exports are going to be severely affected. Vietnam has got a less tariff than we have, so our China plus policy will go into shambles. Anyway, our manufacturing was a complete disaster, as we've seen by it barely rose above 17% as a percentage of our GDP all these years. Modi promised to bring it to 25%. That's failed. So our economy is completely in shambles anyway. This is going to be severely affected. We have no place in the negotiating table over there. Our rupee is going to get weakened because of more dollar inflows. That's another point. We've got hostile neighbors, and you can include US in that. I mean, you can call Trump whatever you want. You can call him impetuous. You can call him irrational. You can call him a maverick, whatever he wants. But he's the most powerful man by virtue of being the president of the most powerful country in the world, which has $30 trillion. I mean, where are we? We're 10 times less, and we haven't got any power.
Okay. All right. Okay. Rajat, respond.
I mean, I have no response to the opposition party. If they have a better plan to deal with Trump, please table it. I would be very happy from an intellectual standpoint to understand what does the India's principal opposition party have to say in terms of engaging with Mr. Donald Trump. We've seen how the Chinese attempted with dealing with Trump, and they saw officials walking off middle of the conversations. This is going to go on. I don't see this having material impact on trade because it is universal in nature. The base rate of 15% is true for every country. So all countries have to face that. Some of the critical items like pharmaceuticals and bunch of other things were anyway even previously left out of the scope of the tariffs, and it will continue that way. And I believe, Trump has issued those letters, and he had to, before the 1st of August deadline, he has to issue these letters. And every country in a round robin manner will get those letters from President Trump. So we should just relax. Nothing, the heavens are not going to fall. If at all things happen, it is going to increase the prices of these goods and services for the audience or for the citizens of US. They need to worry about it. Trump is answerable to them. Let them figure it out.
Okay.
It is going to play out all the $300 billion that Trump has been able to raise through tariffs. Where has it come from? Of course, not from India and China. It has come out as a sort of a taxation on the people of US. So let's not jump with anxieties from stretching from one extreme to the other extreme. To have a more sort of a longish view, India-US relationships is not going to change with one president coming in or going. It is a larger sort of a relationship between two very, very big countries, and look at the long arc, not at small events that happen.
Ambassador Puri, we aren't talking about the real sting in what Trump said. It's not the 25%. It's actually India's continued import of oil. India has said repeatedly that, look, this has to continue. It's our energy security. We are a large country, etc., etc. The foreign minister has said it ad nauseum around the world and in America as well. If Trump now challenges that, then this goes beyond a trade discussion. It is something which, at one level, sort of challenges the relationship. I won't say threatens, but I do believe it challenges the relationship.
Vishnu, you are absolutely right. And Vishnu, please pardon me. I am not a member of the government anymore. I'm a retired former Foreign Service officer. I don't want to answer our friend from the Congress party. I think he should know better as to, who started this bettering the relationship. Let me make one little point to you. We talk a lot about strategic autonomy, but we must start believing in it also. So let me leave it. I think I've said what I had to say on this business of relationship with the United States. You are right. Look,
we are a very I'm not going to let you go so easily. If you say we must maintain our autonomy, does that mean that we need to tell America directly we will continue importing oil?
This relationship
you deal with
the United States. Yeah, this United States relationship is an interesting one as it has evolved over, let me say, the last 20 odd years. Yeah. We now no longer use non-alignment. We speak of multi-alignment, all very well. We are a member of the Quad. We've had these relationships going with them for a long time, etc. All very well. We have this issue of China, a very major player. If we had been in Latin America, things would have been very different, but we are not. We have a border relationship. There is a contestation. There is an issue on all of this particular thing. We know all these things. So it's a relationship which, needs to take into account all of this. Mr. Trump comes in there and, has a, let me say, much more nationalist, their own sort of oriented thing. And possibly, if I'm willing to say, he says friends are fine, but, it's my benefits is what I'm looking for. Okay. Friendship alone is not sufficient. So given this particular thing, let me make this point to you on this point that you mentioned about oil imports, etc. Look, we have to be mindful. We need oil imports. About 80% of our oil requirements are met from imports. It won't be an easy thing to do other things. I'm sure we are looking at alternatives, ramping up domestic production. We're looking at all of these. But, strategic autonomy also means sometimes you have to actually play the game.
Okay, sometimes you need to play the game. Okay. Anshul and Rajat, we've got 1 minute each for both of you. Anshul, Avijit, go ahead. Let me phrase that as a question. The India-US strategic relationship was really built up by Dr. Manmohan Singh. The nuclear agreement between the two sides, it was then built on by the NDA. We got into decades of negotiations with in terms of the foundational agreements, lots of disagreements, then we finally agreed. So do we not need to give America a longer rope? You know, Trump is here today, he won't be here in a few years. Is that something that the Congress should look at?
No, we were expecting America to give us a longer rope to neutralize China. That was the expectation out there. That hasn't worked out because, you know, you've entertained General Asif Munir in the White House. There are loans being given which can be easily funneled for terrorism. You haven't prevented it doing anything. So it's really the other way around. And as far as Mr. Trump is concerned, well, he's not a difficult person. He's a difficult person to understand. But it's never America first for him because enough critics in America themselves have critiqued him for the very tariffs which will harm American interests. But nonetheless, you know, that is not the point. China will get away with this. What China does is depreciates. It actually